From now to Sungo, this is Gaytopix, my life. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz, and these are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual events that happened to me in my lifetime. True experiences that I've witnessed and gone through in my life. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language of this program, viewer discretion is advised. All rights reserved. Copyright 2022. This is Gaytopix, my life. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz. Remember, you're always in a mix with Gaytopix. I'm struggling there to remember my opening, my intro that I've been doing now for the past 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. My once idyllic memory is slowly fading away into dismal flashbacks with so many unanswered questions. My life is really hard, and it's getting worse. Please reference my past episode, Gaytopix, my life, Jane, I'm dying, in reference to whatever happened to baby Jane and Joan Crawford being laid out on the beach and Betty Davis letting her to die. To me, that's a metaphoric description of what death looks like, or what I feel death is. The person can no longer walk. They're constantly in pain. They need 24-hour care. They've lost a significant amount of weight. Their memories are fading away. They're no longer able to do daily tasks like even take a shower or basic hygiene. And they slowly, the collagen in the skin and everything fades into a skeletal-like resemblance. So the person becomes very frail and deathly looking, while still being alive. But death is close. To me, another metaphoric version of someone dying or being close to death is when you're in a hospital and they have all those tubes everywhere. Seeing that image is very traumatizing for me and brings back a lot of PTSD from me being in the army and people dying because they can no longer breathe on their own, or there was no brain activity. I know I'm dying. I know I'm dying. I just don't know why it's taking so slow. And it's extremely slow. On this episode, since this whole new thing is fresh in my head and that I can possibly recollect what happened, I mean, it's kind of fuzzy, but I'm trying to remember in detail of how I got this accident You see, now you're starting to actually see the effects of it. I actually think I may have broken part of my nose here too, which they did not check, but they did do a CAT scan on my head and everything was fine. But what's happening here is the swelling, I assume from the stitches, is now causing my eye to swell and close. It's not from the stitches, let's be honest. I fell face first onto the shower tile, the tile floor in the bathroom, in the shower. There was so much blood. So much blood. And I was halfway in the shower and halfway out of the shower. And the part that was out of the shower was on the floor in a puddle of blood. And it was like this. And I was facing the wall. But the first thing that came to my mind was Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And you know how Norman Bates was stabbing Vivian Lee in the shower, and she fell halfway in the shower and halfway out the shower, and the blood was going down the drain. The exact same thing happened to me. So as I was staring at the wall, and the blood is going everywhere on the floor, and the blood was in the shower, and I was hoping that camera would pan into my eye. So now you can actually see what my eye looks like. It's one devastating effect after the other. It's never going to be so much better. The life that I've had, I think is on full display with what's happening to me, with all these ailments and pains and injuries and shallow breathing and COVID and seizures and headaches and migraines and a massive loss of weight and my blindness, my neuropathy in my feet. I'm having all these ailments and sicknesses, I guess. I wouldn't say sicknesses because your body is reacting to things. Possibly maybe an infection, or possibly maybe even a sickness like COVID or something, or HIV, or death, liver failure, kidney failure. It's been so hard to deal with this by myself, and I'm this grief and abuse comes in so many different levels and so many different forms. In the past 2 episodes, I described to you in great detail the difference between Beth Israel Hospital and Columbia Presbyterian Hospital and how I was treated. They follow a certain protocol at Beth Israel, and they follow a certain protocol at Columbia Presbyterian, but no way, shape, or form should someone be held hostage in an emergency room where they are free to go. I am not under any kind of warrants. I was not brought in by police. I should not be held captive there in this torturous environment where people are screaming for nurses and the bells are ringing for nurses and nurses are walking around laughing and talking about gossip and doing absolutely nothing to. I'm sorry, I'm bleeding from my nose. and doing absolutely nothing. I find when a business or an institution or a store or any kind of policy instructed, even in corporate America, when things are structured and the environment is set at a certain way where people are assigned certain duties and things are to be done in certain ways, in certain fashions, they run smoothly. Like a train or a caterpillar, or in the army with a platoon, everything moves smoothly at the same time in order to get the task done properly. In a hospital setting, that especially an emergency department, is to get those who have serious trauma the help and care that they need first as a priority. Then the secondary, I guess it goes by the injury, or what category it falls on. But irregardless to that, over the pandemic, there was a massive hiring of nurses and people who work in the healthcare field, because if you recall, healthcare workers were the essential workers. Doctors were the essential workers. But everything was shut down, so how were they essential? But there was an influx of people coming here, from all over the country who, had medical degrees and experience in a medical field and a medical setting to come here. And when they came here, they were taught how to conduct, I guess, the setting within the environment they were in, like Beth Israel Hospital or Columbia Presbyterian. What I notice with all these things underneath the umbrella is the customer. And the customer, or patient in this case, is holding the umbrella and everything is above it. Everything is above it, controlling you. You don't have any say or any do, in anything that you say or admit to, because they determine overall what is best for you. More importantly, they have access to your records to see your past history and base your character off of the past experiences of you going to the hospital or you being arrested, and they see your entire history, and then they base their judgment and bias based off of that. Which is why I'm assuming no one has given me any kind of pain management whatsoever, and I'm dealt with this pain. It's freezing. And I'm dealt with this pain. I can't. When a doctor takes the oath, the oath is, you see it's bleeding. I need tissue. When a doctor takes an oath, they take the oath, and the first line in the oath is, "I shall do no harm." Going back to this letter that Dr. and MD Sonia Stokes from it says Mount Sinai St. Luke's. Very interesting, because the second ambulance that picked me up was St. Luke's. So I wonder if they were trying to send me to the same hospital again, but they did not. Anyway, and I'm glad they didn't, because it was a complete 360 of care, and 5 stars in my opinion compared to the 0 stars that I've left for Mount Sinai. But here it goes here. It says, this certifies that Kenny Cruz leaving, taking the named patient from Mount Sinai Hospital, St. Luke's, or Mount Sinai West against the advice of my patient's physician and the hospital authorities. Dr. Sonia Stokes has informed me, the patient, of the risks and consequences which occupy discharge from the hospital at this time. These include, and she handwritten what it is, risk of injury, infection, bleeding, disability, and possibly death. End quote. I'll read that again. These are her words. Risk of injury, infection, bleeding, disability, and possibly death. End quote. That I have a serious problem with. If that statement alone does not speak volumes of the care that I was given at that hospital, then I don't know what else to say. Why, if you consider someone to be at a high risk of possibly dying, would you let them be discharged from the hospital or give them the care that they need? You shall do no harm. Bullshit. You sending me back home after saying that I may possibly die is causing harm. But I had to sign this waiver so she won't be considered for liability purposes or any of that nature, so it's fine. But to me, it was like a torture chamber. And they were holding me captive and kidnapped me in this torture chamber full of people who I don't know who have COVID or not, and they're coughing, and then there's screaming, and the nurses are the ringing for the nurses, and people screaming for the nurses, and like I said, they're all walking around on their phones. Mayor Adams had, tried to prevent that from happening with the police, because people were complaining about the police doing the same thing when they're patrolling the platforms on the subway. Was that every time they saw a police officer, they weren't looking for crime, they were on their phones. That can be very, it can say a lot of things when someone from the outside is actually looking in. I hardly doubt that you have so much work to do that, while you're walking, you're on your phone. You could be on your phone at your desk. You don't have to be constantly on your phone. Or when you're on your phone at your desk, you shouldn't be doing solitary or shopping for Black Friday deals. There are patients here who are screaming your name for your help, and you blatantly ignore them. What I've noticed is that, like I said, the customer is the one holding the umbrella, because the customer is the one and the patient is eventually the one who's going to pay for all this crap. So they're the one holding the umbrella, but they're the one taking the most abuse. Because I find simply, if you just come with some compassionate care, as you are trained to do as a nurse or a doctor, to have some kind of compassionate care, recognize, acknowledge, and respect the actual patient, and engage with them, and notice them. The fact that you're ignoring them is only going to make things worse. In the HRA office, the Human Resources Administration office, you have all those women with the babies crying and screaming like that, and they're screaming that they have to go. Bitch, you on welfare. Where are you going? What's your rush home? But somehow, some way, that there's always they're in a rush and they have to get out of there, and they don't like waiting. Nobody likes waiting. And that is a whole big problem. Because if the people actually sat there and did their job adequately, there would be no need for a wait. And if there was a wait, it wouldn't be long, because things are all moving in the ways they should. And that was the difference between Beth Israel Hospital and Columbia Presbyterian, because once I got to Columbia Presbyterian, there was always somebody in my face and somebody asking me questions and doing things. And, more importantly, the EMTs had that tablet and was asking me to do things, and I even signed the tablet. I didn't do that the first trip. So I'm not even sure if they sent me to the actual general public emergency room department. I think they sent me to an alternate for drug users, and I didn't see any people handcuffed to a bed, so I can't say criminals, but they sent me to an alternate emergency room because the fact that they allowed those patients to be screaming like that, like it was if it was a jail, and they were doing nothing. Here in Columbia Presbyterian, I was very light sensitive, and the light was extremely burning my eyes. In fact, so much so that my eyes started to bleed again, and I'm telling them to turn down the lights, and all I did was press the button, and they came, and it just so happened that my doctor was literally right outside my room, so I can literally just call him. And I did on a couple occasions, and he was readily available to address any need that I had. And there was also a TV. Moreover, it was a comfortable setting because they gave me a blanket, they gave me water, they gave me a bed, and a blanket, and I had a TV to watch, and in Beth Israel, it was just a chair and a curtain. No TV, just a wall with no pictures on the wall. It was just a wall, and the lights were dark. As I said, I didn't think anybody even knew I was there. And when I finally did meet the nurse after trying to escape and, having to get that discharge paper that I just read to you, because according to the police, I needed a discharge paper, which is why they stopped me. So I was okay, but then the discharge paper was really necessary because they didn't ask to see it when I was leaving again. That's what I said. It was sort of like a dungeon, and you're holding me captive, and that's not how a hospital should be properly treating their patients. It's ridiculous. It's frivolous. It's inhumane. Dogs are even treated better by that because at least dogs get food, or dogs are at least seen by numerous, volunteers and stuff like that. Another thing about Columbia Presbyterian, there was a volunteer walking around. I told you on a previous visit to Columbia Presbyterian, there was even a priest. These people at Beth Israel Hospital did not understand the extreme circumstances in which I was in. Number one, no nurse had come to address me until I was about to discharge 2.5 hours later. So I was sitting there by myself for 2.5 hours in my own head, not knowing if I'm actually having severe injuries like a broken nose or a broken eye socket or, a concussion or brain damage or bleeding in the brain, because I'm bleeding from my nose, and it's just the severe headaches and the sensitivity to the light, and now you're seeing the bruising, and I had just fallen, and I was just left there to rot. They didn't care one bit about me. And then they thought changing the room would have made any better, but it didn't, because all you did was put somebody there to watch me as if I was under arrest. And I didn't understand why. I have every right to leave if I'm not being cared for properly. Because I can easily have gone to a city MD or anything like that and been in and out or 10-15 minutes. But they're complaining, oh, we have patients that are far worse than you are, so you're just going to have to wait. It's a common theme in emergency rooms. Yeah, I get it. But there are people, with far worse injuries. But again, if you actually, somebody was there, an administrator or something, to have you all trained, working consecutively with each other and cohesive with each other, it wouldn't be that so chaotic in the emergency room. And the patients would get a feel of satisfaction that their care was, treated properly and well maintained while they were there in the emergency department. And I certainly did not get that in Beth Israel. I got that in Columbia Presbyterian, and I guess that will be my hospital from going forward, because, as I said, I'm dying, and I know there's going to be more things to happen to me in the near future. In fact, I'm looking at my eye now. Do you see? She moved my eyebrow up. So now I have one eyebrow that's going to be up, and the other one is going to be down. I'm permanently scarred. She didn't do it right, because she could have moved this up a little bit more to actually even up with the line, or move these stitches down. I don't know. My beauty has faded, and my beauty is gone, and I'm old, and I'm going through a lot, and I'm all alone, and this is my life. These are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual real events that happened to me in my lifetime. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language of this program, viewer discretion is highly advised. All rights reserved. Copyright 2022. I'm Kenny Cruz, your host, and this is Gaytopix, My Life. I'm still trying to come up with a title for this episode, but it just seems like a part 2 to the emergency. So I guess I'll leave it at that, as the emergency part 2, because I did go to the emergency room twice. So I guess that is fitting to the title. But the difference in care was remarkable, and I felt like somebody in Columbia Presbyterian. I felt like I was being noticed. I was free to walk around anywhere I wanted. I was free to get water. I was free to talk to the police. I was free to talk to the staff. I was free to talk to other patients. I wasn't, confined to a room, although I had a room, and I had suffered another seizure. Now you see, had I still been stuck inside that little room with the chair and had a seizure, they would have never noticed me there, or me having the seizure. When I was in my room, the person next to me, I'm bleeding. There too? What the fuck? Oh, this is going to be a real hard thing to get through. Fuck. Look at my eye. Looked like I was in a fight with Rocky. The other guy next to me in the other room had called a nurse because I was going through the seizure in the room. And then that's when they told me you can't walk around anymore. And I didn't, because I stayed in the room, and they gave me medication. Another thing that I was really proud of, they were so worried about, in Beth Israel, giving me a tetanus shot. I did not fall on a nail. I did not fall on the ground. I fell on my clean bathroom floor. So I don't know why you would assume that I need a tetanus shot, but they were so adamant about a tetanus shot. Give me stitches. Fuck a tetanus shot. So instead of giving me a tetanus shot at Columbia Presbyterian, they ended up giving me ointment an antibiotic, an antibiotic medication and an antibiotic ointment, which I think will help the swelling and, the bubble that will perform over. Because, every time you get stitches or you're cut or something, you get that, like, I don't know what it's called, but it's a bubble, in healing. I don't know what that bubble is, but that would look really weird above my eye. Like I had an overdose of Botox. I actually think you see it's bleeding. I think I will need Botox after this, though. I would definitely think so. I know I need Botox here and here, but I guess that's it. This is just a little brief episode compared to all the others I've done, and I guess I'll see you when I see you, if I do see you, because I don't know how much longer I have, and I hope I can get a very peaceful night's sleep. With that said, I'm Kenny Cruz, your host of Gaytopix, My Life. This has been The Emergency Part 2. Remember, you're always in a mix with Gaytopix. See you soon.